What's up, guys? So we're going to talk about diaphragm and what kind of dysfunctions that can cause due to improper breathing mechanisms. You hear a lot of people talk about belly breathing or chest breathing. Nomenclature is important. Getting things correct is important. Understanding that you can only breathe through your lungs and air only fills through your lungs, not through your belly, not through your chest, not through your lungs, right? So that, plain and simple, incorrect cues, incorrect nomenclature can start to muddy the waters and complicate things and not give you a real idea of how to connect things and how to put things into place. So with the diaphragm, you have connections, upper extremities and lower extremities that can cause a lot of dysfunction if patterns aren't done properly. The diaphragm is a skeletal muscle, so it's something that needs to be strengthened, and it's something that we tend to neglect quite often. One of the ways that we neglect it is the actual improper use of breathing mechanics, right? We do a lot of inhalation through expanding vertically instead of horizontally, right? If you breathe correctly, you're gonna notice that your ribs have an external rotation to them as you inhale. So as you inhale, you breathe in air, your ribs externally rotate, your diaphragm contracts, your lungs expand, and that's the inhalation process. Along with your diaphragm contracting, lungs expanding, your pelvic floor also shuts off. That's the idea of creating that inter-abdominal pressure. Is you're expanding, pushing down to create that inter-abdominal pressure. But as you're doing that, there can be other dysfunctions as well. One of the major dysfunctions is mobility within the upper extremities, within the shoulder girdle, within the chest. And a lot of people that have any type of flexibility issues within the shoulder and chest, they get told to stretch, right? And do you really want you to stretch and become more flexible within the most unstable, flexible joint in the human body? Probably not the best idea. So with proper breathing mechanics, focusing on that external rotation of the ribs, and then as you exhale, you're gonna internally rotate them. And what that does is air goes out of your lungs, right? Diaphragm expands and it pulls and it lengthens your psaos and other muscles that connect to it. So by doing that, in that proper breathing pattern, instead of being up here breathing vertically, you're breathing horizontally, which is going to allow that expansion of that rib cage. Once that rib cage is expanded and it's moving more freely, you're going to have better thoracic rotation and extension, right? Understand that your T-spine does connect to your rib cage. So if that's all bunched up and not breathing properly because you're always constantly vertically breathing, that's going to have a lot of dysfunction within the shoulder joint. So a good way to practice this and a good way to understand the dynamics of it is getting down on the ground, feet up on a bench in a 90-degree position, so 90-90 drill, lifting up your glutes and having more of a posterior pelvic tilt, pulling everything in, and then focusing on that breathing of inhaling, deep breath, inhale, external rotation, and then exhale, internal rotation. Do that about 5 times, and you'll notice your degrees of range of motions within your shoulder joint has improved drastically because everything's firing a little bit better, everything's progressing in the way they should, right? And then obviously, not only with the upper body extremities having dysfunction, but you're also gonna have lower body dysfunction as well. And that's one of the biggest things that I wanna talk about is the understanding of knowing that the diaphragm connects to the psaos, so much so that in cadaver studies, it looks like one muscle. So that tells you a lot about the diaphragm. Psaos creates stability within the lumbar. It also can lead to a little bit of hip dysfunction as well if there's a lot of issues. So you want to think of it in terms of if you're doing that vertical breathing, right, and you're doing that up or down breathing, and you're expanding your torso, right. What that does is you inhale, right, and expand your torso because you're breathing top heavy, you're shrugging, right? So you're expanding that, but also remember that diaphragm is getting pushed down. So if that diaphragm is getting pushed down, so is your psaos. So your psaos is constantly short. So if you're sitting down, hunched over, it's short. And then on top of that, it's gonna be short because your breathing mechanics is all messed up. And what that's gonna cause is as you're trying to lengthen or stretch, doing a vertical jump, doing any type of explosive movement, even just standing, you're gonna notice that pinch is gonna be there, right? The people that get up to stand and, oh, I can't quite stretch out, that's because their psoas is so shortened due to their torso being lengthened due to improper breathing mechanics, and their torso or their psoas always getting pushed down because we're so much in that inhalation sympathetic state that we don't ever really focus on deep exhalation, parasympathetic breathing to not only get this diaphragm muscle stronger and get it working properly, but it also will allow that shortening and lengthening of the psoas as well, which is extremely important. You don't want any of your muscles to be in one position their entire time, because that's going to create a lot of dysfunction. So thinking about externally rotating your rib cage, internally rotating your rib cage, not belly breathing, is going to allow for proper breathing mechanics to take place. And then on top of that, you want to make sure that the breathing that you're doing is forced exhalations as well. So we do a lot of get tight, insert abdominal pressure. That's great, but we don't do the reciprocal of that with the really long exhale and then hold. So doing breath holds to create that diaphragmatic strength and that exhale pressure is going to be very, very important. So doing any type of breathing drills that's going to allow you to maybe do a nasal breath in and then a really long exhale and then a hold is going to help start building up some of that diaphragmatic strength. It's going to start lengthening that psoas instead of it being in a short position. So it's going to be really helpful for injury prevention, both in the hips and in the shoulder girdle, because like I said, you're going to have a freer, more stable range of motion because breathing mechanics elicits a lot of those properties. So just focusing on those things, also understanding that parasympathetic recovery does wire into the diaphragm. You have these phrenic nerves that are attached to your brain, go all the way down to your diaphragm. So those are going to be something that you can actively activate, right? Of course, by doing some type of nasal breathing. The one I recommend is 2 inhales followed by a long exhale. So it's nasal breathe in and then exhale out, either through the mouth or the nose. So it's going to be one big inhale, nasal breath, and then one smaller inhale to get the rest of the air, and then exhale out. Once you exhale out, you want to hold that exhale position, just because you know, it's the same thing as like for every push, you want to do a pull. For every inhale, you want to do a long exhale. So work those things. You'll notice not only does your gait pattern improve, your lower back pain will improve, because instead of being in this constant anterior pelvic tilt because you're constantly breathing, expanding that torso, everything's going to be pulled back under you. Your pelvic floor is going to be under your diaphragm, which is going to create more stability within the muscle. It's also going to create more force production. More stability is going to create more force production. So that's why it's important to stack your hips under your torso and then above your knees, all in one straight line. That's going to allow for better stability, better force production. And like I said, the psoas is a stabilizer of the lumbar. So getting that active, getting that strong, and getting that in a fully lengthened position along with the shortened position is going to allow for a full range of functionality of the psoas. So work on those things, guys. The 90-90 breathing drill, just to work on proper breathing mechanics, and then those forced exhales to work on strengthening the diaphragm, and then also to get more parasympathetic tone, the 2 nasal breaths with a longer exhale. Try those 3 things out and just see how things improve, and let me know what you think.